Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast, streaming live on Wednesday, the 27th of January. And joining me on this edition, Ed Selly.
People who are awake at 3 a.m. aren't afraid of the Wolfman. The only thing that frightens those people is sobering up and going to work.
Kaz Hadlow.
Do you think the Gremsters can stand up to the Hulkster?
Tom Davies.
You got in a habit now of getting our names wrong. You got one job, Phil.
I'll go with Tony. I'll be Tony. That's fine. You're having a psychotic episode. Thank you for sharing it with us.
And Steve Williams.
All a man wants is some fresh germs.
Yeah, welcome back in, mates. It's day 374 in the Big Brother house. How's everybody doing? Tom, you've not been on the podcast for a while. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Keeping busy, you know. I'm still at work. I'm not in lockdown. I'm not home working. I'm still going to the office every day. So my life has changed, not a jot. So things are just very, very stable, you know?
Same for everybody else on this podcast, Tom. We're all just doing the same things that we used to do. Anything else going on?
No, not really. I'm just trying to keep up with my reading, keep up with my video gaming, and keep up with my movies and TV, and doing all of those things at the same time.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
Appreciating you omit parenting in that list of things to do.
No, that's, you know, I'll just leave that. Yeah, it's fine. I don't need to get involved in that side of things.
And I was just going to say, I mean, with lockdown and everything else, we're all going to have 1970s haircuts. I mean, we're all growing.
I am so glad that I got mine done literally days before we went tier 4.
I didn't. And it's getting really, really long.
Again, makes no difference to me because I've always had a 70s haircut.
It's a cracking beard. I mean, it's good to see the movies team can actually grow beards, because the hardware team, every time we've tried to do Movember and whatever, it's ended in a disaster. Usually Ginger.
She and Ginger in my case.
Ginger in my case as well, for some strange reason. Kaz, what you been up to?
Wrangling small animal-like children. Pretty much standard for the course. Eventful night was a flood and a power cut.
Ooh.
So that was the power went out, and then I isolated all the sockets and brought everything back online painstakingly, and then discovered one thing wouldn't come back, a whole section wouldn't come back, and then eventually found the heating wasn't working, put 2 and 2 together and found, that little
noticed the house is underwater.
combi thing that filters the lime scale out of your water that was leaking. The thing you're supposed to replace like every year. You're supposed to replace the little balls in it.
When did you last replace it?
1999.
Actually, not bad. It was about 18 months. Prior to that, 7 years it lasted. So I was very disappointed.
So actually, it was a mistake to change the one that was seemingly...
Yeah, I should have left that one. Well, that one was leaking. But I mean, it took 7 years last time. I was disappointed this one only went 6 months past date. I'll check it more regularly. But yeah, that had leaked. It had gone down into the electrics, and yeah, that was fun. So no heating, no hot water, no power in half of the house. Yeah, it's good. I mean, at least it was summer, so everyone was good with it.
Ed, what are you up to?
I've been working. It's been most distressing, but that's all right. I'm not complaining about work. I've been doing some work for you, been doing some work for some other people. I was delighted at how my attempts at Twitter democracy went earlier today, asking which wine I should consume this evening. I am drinking the wine.
You should never know. You should know by now never ask the internet for advice.
Well, I didn't ask. I know I gave them two choices of which I'd have been happy with either choice. I've gone with the choice that they voted for. I mean, obviously, the one terrible thing is it's a cork bottle, and as I don't have any stoppers, I'm going to have to finish it. But I'll manage. Other than that, it's been fine. We had some snow here, but it was fine and it passed pretty uneventfully. I did have a moment, I'm having to get used to having a car with more electronics on it because not the snow day, the day after the snow day here, it was -4 when I set off in the morning. So I cleared the windows and the lights and all the things that I generally expect to clear. I tried to set off in the car and it performed 2 emergency stops on me because the collision sensor was completely iced over.
Yeah,
so it was convinced it was going to be in a massive accident. So that took a bit of time. It was very air crash investigation.
Where is that? On top of the windscreen?
It's in an alcove in the front bumper.
Yeah. They're mainly all in the bumper, so you got to watch for it, like in the autumn time, watch that it doesn't get covered by a leaf or something like that. Because
but anyway, lesson learned, and no harm came of it. So no, otherwise it's fine. Anyone wondering why there is a giant cat behind me? People have asked me, why do you have a background? Can I could I just, show the cats that keep turning up? And it's like, well, they move around a lot and they're dicks. So I've taken a photo of one of the cats and she will be my background for this evening. And I will take a photo of the other cat and he will be the background next week. Can't say better than that. Yeah, she's huge, isn't she? She's not that big, really.
Not as big as Colin.
No, not at all. So no, that's me, Phil. That's where I am.
Yeah. I've done nothing.
Are we even going to ask Steve, or do we just assume he's a default?
I've started Expanse.
Okay.
Almost finished season 1. I've got 1 episode. I'm going to finish it tonight. That'll be season 1 done. Only got 4 more seasons to go. Thoroughly enjoying it. Think it's great.
I have to say, I've been doing a Dirty Harry marathon. I watched Dirty Harry.
Ooh, that goes off a cliff fairly after the second film.
Oh, there's time for all of them. I mean,
this is the thing. I watched The Enforcer last night, and it is clearly on a downward trajectory, but it's manageably bad, Steve, compared to many of the other things. I'm going to see it through. Sudden Impact will be tomorrow. No, probably Friday.
So I think they changed the first one's obviously seminal. But the second one's actually quite a good story.
Oh, I think the second
one's a great film.
It's better than the first.
It's a clever story. It's not as iconic, but
it raises some interesting issues about fascism and police brutality and things that are quite relevant today, actually.
The third one is utter nonsense with a rocket launcher. But by the fourth one, they realise it's utter nonsense. And he's wandering around with this automatic Magnum 44, isn't he? He's upgraded. And it's.
I'm sure it's 45 cal, is it not?
44.
No, it's a 44 cal.
Anyway, that's what I've been doing. Watching Dirty Harry. How did we get there?
And then the fifth is the harpoon gun.
The fifth one, I actually considered walking out of the cinema.
No way!
Deadpool. I nearly walked out of the cinema. I thought it was so bad when he's being chased by the remote control miniature.
Who ever thought that remote control cars in any movie ever could be any kind of threat? It's worse than the number of times people get chased by bikes when they could just put their foot on the brake and just knock the people off. But a remote control car, I'll just drive over that.
I'll tell you the best thing I've watched this weekend. Everybody should go and check it out. Is the new trailer for Godzilla versus King Kong, voiced by Aussie Man Reviews. Go watch. Hilarious.
I think the actual trailer is pretty funny. Quality actors in that film, and how they say that dialogue with a straight face is beyond me. It's like they obviously are good actors because it looks like utter cobblers.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Godzilla versus Kong. I've had quite a lengthy discussion on the forum about my love of Godzilla, but considering how they've messed him around for 2 movies in a row. Was that a pun, Steve?
It wasn't actually, although I wish it had.
It should have been. We'll say it was.
What was one before? King of the Monsters? It was.
Yeah,
I know this is going to make me sound really old, but it was so loud.
It was so loud.
Not only was it loud, but it was full of flashing lights as well, which was just unnecessary.
Having very hard to sleep through.
I had my hands over my ears going, please cut to a quiet scene. Please cut to a dialogue scene. And are there any? No, just more bang, bang. It's like,
fighting in the dark, in a lightning storm. That's the whole movie, and it's just diabolical. That's why I want King Kong to win for this next one.
At least in the second one, they did actually show Godzilla, because the first one, it seemed to be we're going to not show you the monster.
And unlike Jaws, it didn't work, did it? So
no, because the whole point of going to see a Godzilla film is to see Godzilla.
Yes.
Otherwise, What's the point?
But yeah, the trailer was entertaining, but when you've got Aussie Man reviews over the top as well with his input, it was rather entertaining. Steve, what have you been doing?
Well, I quite enjoyed a bit of snow. I know it's a normal thing for you, Phil, but it's quite unusual down in the south. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Oh,
it's
that's
unusual.
great.
It's unusual to have no snow at this time of the year up here. It's snowing again tonight, actually.
It was basically fun just watching the cat try and go out in it, and then like after 5 seconds come back in, and then forget and go back out again, and then come back in, and just sort of look at you as if to say with pleading eyes, please make that cold white stuff go away so I can go and have a wee or a poo.
I think it was perfect for the kids. They absolutely loved it. It just broke up the monotony of that was.
Yeah, definitely.
They loved it. We did 3 snowmen, did some sledding. I mean, it was tremendous. Yeah, it was. That was a really good one day of snow, and then afterwards it was. Just,
and I mean,
also,
obviously, it's useful at this time in this bizarre situation because it's like it's in any way disruptive to any plans that you might have on account of the fact that you don't have any plans.
to go anyway. Yeah, exactly.
It did delay the Amazon delivery man, which annoyed the hell out of me, though.
Didn't delay ours. It was skating around the place like a madman.
But I've got to say, I ordered a couple of parts from China, and normally they wouldn't be here till March. Normally, I ordered them last week. Turned up today.
Are these car parts?
That's because
car parts, yeah.
So nothing else can get in this country, only stuff from China.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think we're all up to date. We've not been doing much, like everybody else. We're all still under arrest at the moment and in prison. And
it's been extended, hasn't it?
Yeah,
March the 8th, which everybody knew.
Sort of knew anyway.
I knew this was coming. Yeah. So if you found this entertaining so far, then please do like the video. It is important that you click the like button. Also, hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. If you are listening to the audio only version a little bit later on in the week, then thank you very much for listening. It is appreciated. The vast majority of you do listen to the audio version of the podcast. So thank you for doing that. And you can get the podcast through iTunes, Spotify, and other providers. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, and we do have a question that's coming this week, you can send that to podcast@avforums.com, and we'll read it out and answer it on the next available podcast. Also, if you appreciate the forums and editorial content, the podcasts and videos and everything else, and of course, you can become a long-term subscriber to the channel through the Patreon. So it's patreon.com/avforums, £3 a month. You get some really good odds on the competitions, and you'll get to see other bits and pieces ahead of time. And we will be working on bringing patrons more exclusive content as the year goes on. We are planning more podcasts and other things that are going to happen, so you will get exclusive access and so on. Moving on, if you don't fancy that, but you want to give us a donation anyway, you can do that through streamlabs.com/AVForums. Perfect way to give money and also get your question answered because it pops up on the screen, and when it pops up on the screen, at least one of us will read it and answer it. Donations since we last went live, well, it's all patrons, so thank you very much, David Nemo, Dapper Dan 486, and Mr. James Finney. Thank you all for becoming a patron and supporting us on the AVForums podcast. It is appreciated. Thank you very much. And if you do feel inclined to support us, obviously you're helping us grow AVForums, improve the site speed and features, produce more editorial content, and one of these days we'll make the perfect podcast. Some would say it's the movies podcast. But Phil, we don't have a movies podcast, or do we, Tom?
Ooh.
Yeah, coming up.
Segue.
Later next month on, I'm going to get the date wrong now, but I think it's the 15th of February, which is the third. It's going to be the third Monday of every month. We're going to be discussing things coming to streaming services. We're going to be looking at things coming to the cinema if cinemas finally reopen. Just talking about what we're watching, what we might recommend, and also getting into some other topics in a bit more depth, discussing genre and filming techniques and use of color and sound and all the stuff that you love to hear about. So on the 15th of February, tune in and you'll hear us rattling on about whatever we decide.
I'll be staggered to hear that I'm not going to be part of that podcast on account of the fact that I've barely seen any films.
And if it's shit, then you blame Tom, because Tom's doing the running order. So it's all on you, Tom.
Absolutely. You can tune into the first one. We'll be discussing News of the World, not the defunct tabloid publication, but the new Paul Greengrass movie starring Tom Hanks.
Yeah, and lots of other things, because what Tom's going to learn is, doesn't matter how much work you put into a running order, you never stick to it.
Yeah,
and things get missed and all the rest of it. But we're not going to miss the competitions because they are really important, and Kaz is going to tell us all about them.
Sure, you can still win a Philips 55-inch OLED 935 worth £2,000. I mean, it's dropped the mic time after that one, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the best of the competitions. But you can also win a Sharp SBW 800 Dolby Atmos soundbar with wireless subwoofer, which is worth $449. And then it's a bunch of Blu-ray 4K competitions. Criterion's January titles still up there. Bill and Ted Face the Music, Batman Soul of the Dragon, Jackie Chan's Vanguard, and The Mask of the Red Death. You can win a copy of 2012 in 4K and Star Trek Picard Season 1 on Blu-ray, but only for our patrons. And that's it. Head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. There's also a couple of podcast winners, previous winners. Patreon exclusive went to Johnny K. He got Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Shadow Nige won the Studio Ghibli 8-film Blu-ray bundle, including 4 limited edition steelbooks. So they should be coming out to you soon. Congratulations. He was very chuffed.
Well done.
And later on, the podcast exclusive copy of Link can be won. Stay tuned to hear that. People are learning. We've got a 50% hit rate so far, but only 2 people have tried to enter. So one's
right, one's wrong.
Yeah, one's right, and one of you is out of luck. So
good odds of winning that prize then.
yeah, if no one else enters. Yeah.
Good stuff. Right. So we'll be back in a second with hardware. Right, so lots going on. That's one of the reasons why it's only 7:15 and we're moving on to hardware, because there's been lots of things going on. The main event today was Philips TV launch. Normally, we would be sitting at the hotel at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. One of the easiest press trips to do for me, because it was just a case of getting to Newcastle, flying into Schiphol, walk to the hotel, get the press conference and everything else, have dinner that evening. You did some workshops in the morning, back over to the plane and back to Newcastle. Is one of the easiest ones to get to.
Yeah, the hotel is literally in Schiphol.
In the airport. Yeah, it's in the airport. You don't leave the airport. So, so anyway, that's not happening this year for obvious reasons. So it was all done online. And it was a bit of one of these things, pick what happens next press conferences, where they gave you choices to pick what you wanted to hear more about.
It's like choose your own adventure, basically.
Yeah, choose your own adventure, which is really quite entertaining. I mean, obviously, I watched it a second time and clicked.
You realised it was the same.
Realised it was the same thing, but it's a bit different than just somebody standing on a stage waffling on about new products. It's actually well done.
I will say that Costas, the managing director, earns his money. He does deliver. They had him doing all sorts of stuff in the sort of the little segues, didn't they?
Karaoke's and stuff was the one in September, wasn't it?
Yoga. You had him doing yoga this time, didn't they? And all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So it's a good sport. It's well put together. It obviously has a good sense of humour around it, and it's entertaining. And there's some interesting products to announce. Now, got to say, maybe 4 years ago, if you mentioned Philips TVs to most people, they would have thought, well, it's a defunct brand. It's no longer around, no longer doing anything decent. But I've got to say, TP Vision have come in, taken over the Philips brand in Europe, and they've pulled out the stops. They have really interesting engineers who work behind the scenes, developing the products. The products have been excellent for the last few years. The problem has been getting into retailers,
buying them.
And buying them, because we would review them, give them great reviews, and then the complaint was can't find it anywhere to buy. That problem's now solved. You can find them in most major retailers now for sale. And I've got to say the OLED Plus 935, which I reviewed recently, is the flagship model. It was the one that was introduced at IFA time. It has the Bowers Milk and soundbar. absolutely fantastic TV. Fantastic TV. I think it won our luxury TV of the year last year, because it was even though it only cost, I think it was £1,900 for the 55-inch. You might say that that's quite expensive, but for a flagship TV with, you know, the design, the materials, the Bowers and Wilkins soundbar with the tweeter on top design, all the features that was on there and so on, it's a cracking TV, and it carries over till at least IFA time this year as the flagship. Now, the only downside to that is the fact that it doesn't have HDMI 2.1. But if you're not a gamer and you're obviously not going to have 8K to worry about, then it shouldn't be a problem for you. The new lineup this year then, and this is the way it always goes from January, you get the 800 series and the 700 series for the OLEDs. So the OLED 706, that's the entry-level budget TV. It replaces the 705. I think the 705 was retailing for around about £1,000, £1,100 last year. So if it comes in at the same price point, you're getting quite a bit of features on there with the 706, because you get all of the HDR standards on there. So you get HDR 10 plus, you get Dolby Vision, you get most of the features. You also get HDMI 2.1. So you get all the features for 2.1 on there on the 706. So that looks like being a real bargain, and you get 3-sided Ambilight as well. So that could be the bargain OLED for this year, especially because it's got ALLM, VRR, 48 gigabits per second.
Yeah, when we say HDMI 2.1, we mean proper fully spec.
Yeah, it's full spec. Now, it's only on 2 inputs, though. So you get 4 inputs on a TV. One in HDMI 1 and 2 are the only ones that are going to be 48 gigabits per second, and EARC will be on HDMI 2. But still, 2 is better than none. And the only thing that Philips really had to add this year to the TVs, if we're being really honest, Steve, was 2.1. They have everything else. Like I say, they cover all the HDR standards.
Yeah, they've added HDR 10 plus adaptive as well. So they've got
I don't
Dolby Vision IQ.
Interested.
But you know, if you're looking for something that does everything, it does everything.
Yeah, it does everything. And obviously the 856, the only differences there between the 806 and 856 is going to be screen sizes and the standard design. The 856 is 55 and 65 only. The 806 starts at 48 inches, so it's 48, 55, 65, and this year they're bringing in a 77-inch.
I think that's going to be very popular.
Yeah, that will be popular.
Can you imagine 4-sided
Ambilight on a 77-inch screen?
Yeah. And there's all the features, HDMI 2.1. I mean, that's looking like a strong. Well, the lineup's looking strong, but I reckon that's going to be a very popular screen size.
I think it will be, and like you say, I mean, it's got everything on there. What I did like as well is that the feet on the 806 are the little stick feet, a bar that you place in, and it's really sturdy once it's in there, but you only get about so much distance between your surface and the bottom of the TV. But what I like this year is that they've coloured each end. So if you want chrome, then you stick the feet that way and you get the chrome. And if you don't want chrome, you want a dark, it's like a metallic dark chrome, isn't it? You can turn it around and have a darker finish. You stand. What a genius idea.
Yeah, it's quite clever.
Yeah, really clever. So yeah, you can do that on the 806. The 856 comes with a dark chrome T-bar stand.
That looks really nice. I thought that was quite saucy.
Yeah.
Saucy television.
Saucy. That one's 55 and 65 inch as well. So that looks like a good TV. Again, we'll give out the warnings that we gave when we discussed the CES stuff, that this is pure marketing at the minute. We're only being told what Philips want us to know at this moment in time. Obviously, we'll get the TVs in to test. We'll put them through the ringer and we'll report back. But I'm not expecting anything major to be wrong with these, because all of them have been spot on so far.
They were really good last year. So we
really
can assume they'll be really good this year. Plus, they've got some extra features. So
yeah, absolutely. So there's not a lot else to say about them actually, other than that. Now the P5 is the processing chip. It's really, really good at what it does. There is a new motion setting in there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to have a play about with that and see how that works, because Philips are claiming a few things. Now, it won't suit 24 frames per second material, I don't think. It'll be more for watching video content, but it'll be interesting to see how that looks. Filmmaker mode will be a named
We
preset.
called that.
It was movie last year, and I missed it on the first TV that I reviewed. I went straight to the ISF settings because I didn't see it listed. It wasn't until I got the 935 and then I'd spoken to Philips that I realised, or was told, that it was the movie on the 2020 TVs. The 2021 TVs, it'll be called Filmmaker mode. And it's nice to see not only that, but also CalMan being added as well. So you'll be able to do auto calibration through CalMan. And that's great because like I've said a number of times, myself and Steve sometimes butt heads with Danny Tak, who's the picture guru for Philips, because Danny's all about image smoothing and boosting up colors and doing HDR from non-HDR content, that kind of thing. I mean, basically the kind of stuff that as a purist and as somebody that wants to see it from the creator's intent, it's not really our cup of tea.
Not your kung fu.
But we've got to say that they give you the choice. You can have the TV, like I say, there's ISF modes on there. There's CalMan now, so you can do auto cal, and you've got filmmaker mode. So you don't have to play about with the processing and the fake colors and everything else that the other modes will have. So it's nice that they give you the choice and they don't just try and force feed you into the P5 processor and nothing else. That actually gives you the choice.
To be fair, it's like any of these other things. So long as the option remains to turn it off, there's no harm in having additional functionality.
Absolutely.
It's the same as that horrible fake engine noise thing in my car. I mean, I can turn it off so it doesn't annoy me.
Yeah.
If it was turned on all the time, I'd be furious. And I in the same way that if Philips said, actually, it doesn't really matter whether you want a fake HDR or not, you get fake HDR all the time, that would be very bad. But for as long as you can go no to the Danny modes, then fine. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. And another important thing to point out is not only does it do Dolby Atmos, that's all the TVs. They also have DTS Play-Fi. And DTS is very, very difficult to find on TVs nowadays. So if you're somebody that has a NAS drive or whatever, and you have DTS content on there and you've struggled in the past to play back that content, Philips TVs do handle DTS, so they will play it back properly. And then finally, Smart TV is Android 10. Android's never been a problem on the Philips TVs, I don't think. I think they've always had a good processor behind it, and I've never experienced any of the issues that you used to find on the early Sony TVs with Android. So again, that should work pretty well. It worked well this year. So that's the OLEDs. Moving on to Mini LED, which I think everybody's quite excited about. Mini LED.
They were calling it MiniLED, weren't they?
MiniLED, yeah.
Sound right to me. Mini LED.
Mini LED.
I can understand if it's like QLED because it's like OLED, but Mini LED sounds like you're being led somewhere.
Yeah,
mini.
It does a little bit. Now, obviously, the caveats that we've given you already on the podcast about Mini LED, it's all going to come down to how many zones there are, how many Mini LEDs are behind the panel, and also the most important thing is the dimming algorithm, the local dimming algorithm.
Yeah, that's the key. You can have 10,000 zones, but if they're not being applied properly,
exactly.
It's still going to look like a bag of spanners.
Exactly. So obviously Philips have done a lot of picture processing. Their micro dimming premium system is going to be on their TVs, the Mini LED TVs. So hopefully that should be up to the job. So you've got two TVs coming out now. I don't like the way they name the models for the LED. It's like a pin number. So you've got the 9506 and also the 9636. Now the 9636 is the top of the range. It has the Bowers Milken speaker bar, which is exactly the same as the one that's on the Plus 935 OLED TV. So the tweeter on top, all the new drivers and everything else on there. They are going to come in 65 and 75 inch screen sizes, so no lower than 65 inches on these TVs, which is interesting that they're going for the larger screen size here. And obviously they're high quality VA panels, but they will have wide viewing angle and wide color gamut on there. So it'll be interesting to see how they do the...
claiming 94% of DCI and 2000 nits peak brightness on that TV.
Yeah, that's claimed. The 9636 is
1500, excuse me, nits on the other one.
Yep, and all the features that are on the OLEDs, they all cross over as well. So, it'll have all the HDR formats on there. It'll have HDR10 adaptive. It has film.
4-sided ambilight.
four-sided ambilight, HDMI 2.1, 48 gigabits per second. Again, it's ports 1 and 2 for 48 gigabits per second. Again, it does 4K 120. It'll do 40 hertz to 120 hertz in 4K. So variable refresh rate there. EARC port 2 again, auto game mode, and yeah, fully loaded TVs again. And like I say, I mean, when it comes to mini LED, the proof is going to be in the pudding, basically. All the manufacturers are going to have their own ways of dealing with the local dimming, and it's going to be the local dimming algorithms at the end of the day, like we said a number of times now on the podcast, that's going to make the difference, and these TVs are either going to fly or splash. So proof will be in the pudding. I keep talking about food. It's because I keep going to my fridge, you see. I bought this t-shirt in an extra large, 2XL actually, getting a bit tight, and it hasn't been washed and shrunk yet. So so that's what Philips have been doing today. Unfortunately, we weren't out there in Amsterdam. It's always nice to get out and meet the guys. And like I say, we normally get the products and then go out for dinner and that kind of thing. And the dinners are usually quite entertaining. I'm trying to remember where the last one was. It was snowing that evening. We went down the canal.
There last year. I was.
It was really interesting. So unfortunately, we're not out there, but the products look good. They are expected to land. Well, the mini LEDs will be this summer, and I expect the OLEDs to be round about late May, June time. I would imagine that they're going to come to market round about then. So that's.
So just say something. People have been asking how much for the 77-inch OLED, Philips OLED. Don't know. I mean, they haven't announced prices yet.
Yeah.
So don't know, but it'd be interesting to see what they do price it at.
It will be. I think it'll be competitive. It'll be round about the same as what other manufacturers at that level will be.
Was it around that £5,000 mark new?
Something like that. Be about that, I would have thought. So I'd be surprised if it was any more than that, I think. So yeah, I mean the Philips look good, but there's strong TVs this year, which is good to see because everybody's now gone HDMI 2.1. So that's not there anymore. That's not going to be an issue for people. They look really highly spec'd, like we said a couple of weeks ago after CES. The Sony OLEDs, they look strong, especially the A90J. It looks like it's going to be a real contender this year. And of course, we've got the JZ2000 from Panasonic. So if you're in the market for a high-end TV, even a little bit lower down, because the 706 is going to be a bit of a bargain from Philips, I think. And it's going to have most of the features on there as well. So yeah, good lineup. Right. So let's move it on. And it's a subject that I asked Steve to write an article about a few months ago. It finally went up a few weeks ago on the site. And that wasn't because Steve took his time. It was just a case of that's when it got published. Soundbar. Do you have a soundbar, or do you go for a full AV system with surround speakers? And there's some caveats to this, Steve, because obviously if you're asking me what's going to sound better, a soundbar or a full-on AV system with speakers and amplifiers, that's going to be the full-on AV system every time with that question. But that's not really the question we're looking at, or the angle that we're approaching this from, is it?
No, the idea was, I think whenever I've done a review of a high-end soundbar system, so something like one of the flagship LG or Samsung systems where they come with, wireless rear speakers, and they genuinely deliver and have upward firing drivers at the front and at the rear. So you're getting a proper sort of 7.1.4 channel immersive audio experience. The question that always gets asked is, well, yeah, but because they're never cheap. I think they're usually about £1.5 when they launch. So it's a lot of money. £1,500 is a lot of money for a soundbar, unless you're buying a Sennheiser, in which case it's looking cheap. People always go, well, for that kind of money, I could buy a separate system. And so the question is, really, could you really buy a separate system for that kind of money? So, as you said, Phil, obviously, if you were building a dedicated home cinema from scratch, you'd go separate. You'd put in the speakers properly. You'd have, front, side, rear, overheads, and in an AVR or processor and power amps, whatever you're doing. But most people don't have that option or that luxury, shall we say? So it's not necessarily a question of budget. Quite often it's a question of, how many speakers can you get away with putting in your lounge? And a lot of partners aren't going to be too keen if you start putting, 7 speakers at ear level and 4 on the roof, on the ceiling.
Yeah. And,
so,
and I think that's a bit of a misconception as well, because if you read a lot of the comments, it's not the partner that's putting the pressure on. It's usually a realization of, well, you know what, I don't actually need a huge system in my living room, and I could survive with a soundbar. So I don't necessarily think it's always the partner that's...
It's not even budget. Some people will say, I could afford to buy a separate system, but you know what? I don't want wires and cables all over the lounge. I don't want speakers that get knocked over at the back of the room. I don't want all that stuff. So I'm going to go for a soundbar. And the good news is that the better soundbars now really can sound very good. I mean, genuinely immersive. And they're getting better and better each year. They're bringing in new features, not just DTS:X and Dolby Atmos support, but also I think they've started to add IMAX Enhanced to it. They're starting to bring in things like auto room EQ, and when you put it all together, you can buy a really good soundbar that can deliver a genuinely immersive experience with some decent bass from a separate wireless sub, and in the majority of living rooms, that can be enough. You don't have to go the separates route. If you decide you do want to go the separates route, it is actually quite difficult to get the same level of immersion for that money, because if you look at a typical soundbar system that's like 5.1.4, so that's basically 9 channels. So you need a 9-channel AVR for a start. You'll be hard put to find a decent 9-channel AVR for more than sort of maybe 800-900 quid. You can get cheaper 7 channels. So if you only want 2 overhead channels, and to be honest, in smaller lounges you can get away with that, then you can get a decent 7-channel AVR for around about the 500 quid mark. But I think if you want to actually replicate what the soundbar is doing, and so you want 5.1.4, then you need to get a 9-channel AVR, and therefore you're looking, you're starting. You can, if we're talking about new kit, you are looking around the £800-900 mark before you've even got around to buying a speaker package. And obviously there's a wide range of options, but without doubt, if you're looking for bang for buck, the Focal Sib Evo package is really good and unbelievably good value. And you can buy the system comes, I think, with 3 front speakers, 2 rears, and a sub. And the 2 of the front ones have built-in upward firing drivers. You can buy those 2 separately again if you wanted to therefore put 2 at the back as well with upward firing drivers to create 5 or even 7.1.4. So I looked at pricing it up in brand, and if you were buying new kit, you would definitely not be. I don't think you'd be able to put together a 9-channel immersive audio system for less than $1.5 grand. So in the concept, well, you can do it for less. No, you can't, unless
you go to our classifieds.
You go to the classifieds, and then you definitely can. Obviously, some people may not want to go secondhand route, but I'll tell you, I think the classifieds is one of the big secrets of AVForums, one of the great secrets, because for me personally, if I'm selling kit, first place I go, because I know first of all that everyone looking at those classifieds is in the market for AV kit. It's not like eBay where it's just everything and there's no middleman. And yes, they might screw you down a bit on the price because they know the market really well. But at the end of the day, you'll sell it fast and you'll sell it to someone who actually wants it. A little bit. So the classifieds is, if you're looking to build a separate system for less than $1.5 grand and it's going to be 9 channels, you could do it. You could do it.
Yeah. I used to travel the country, the whole length of the country, before I started reviewing full time on AVForums, buying and selling kit. The number of times I
you must look like a drug dealer sat in car parks.
Drive down to London, drive down to the West Country. I think the West Country was probably as far as I went to buy a couple of Servo 15 subwoofers back in the day. I swapped an SVS cylinder sub for 2 Servo 15 subwoofers. That must have been 2002, something like that, long time ago. But yeah, they're really, really good. But also, if you if you have a bit of a buying and selling habit, it can become quite addictive. So yeah, be careful. The classifieds can cost you money. But I used to punt a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays on there as well when they used to be worth something. So yeah, classifieds.
Back before physical media became worth buttons.
Yeah, it is. It's worth buttons now. Now, so we've discussed Soundbar. We've looked at routes that you could go to add in an AVR and speakers for 1,500 quid, and it's not quite doable. The other option, Ed, is to put two speakers either side of your TV rather than a soundbar and have proper separation and a nice expansive sound to the front of your living room.
Yes, that is another option. And let's be honest, a huge number of the products that I've looked at over the last 2 years, in terms of the connectivity to do it, a significant number of them have had HDMI ARC. So it's not even any different in terms of the connection you're making to them in terms of TV sound. Let's start right at the beginning and deal with what these systems can't do. Immersion, as described by Phil and Steve, is the pushing of effects behind you and over your head. And absolutely nothing that I deal with the possible and noble exception of those Martin Logan speakers, which did it by being enormous, will physically do that. The information is presented in front of you as a stereo image. And if you want full-on cinematic immersion, that's just not going to be what any of the things that I look at can do. But I have been using a 2.0 based viewing system of, comprised of varying equipment. It depends what's in at the time. Ever since I moved out of my last house into the shed and then in the shed to here. At times, depending on the equipment being used, it is immersive in the Oxford English Dictionary sense of immersive. You dial out whether it's being pushed over your head or behind you. And is it completely compelling? Yes, absolutely. So you have to weigh up whether you want the physical manipulation of effects around you, which none of the stuff I deal with can do. The caveat to that, of course, is that if you are looking at this equipment to handle a mixed diet of TV viewing and music, this is where the things that I look at start to claw out some significant advantages, because I've heard some of the modern soundbars, and I do not want to belittle what they can do, because they are much, much better than any of the soundbars of old. The progress that's been made across their all sorts of functionality, as Steve said, is significant. Nevertheless, today on the forums, my review of the topping E30 DAC went live. So that's £115, and there's a photo of that in the review, sat on top of a Riga IO, which is £380. So it's £495 the pair, which would leave you £1,000 to spend on speakers, and I wouldn't necessarily suggest you'd have to go that far. That would quite happily take an optical feed from a television, and I did use it for TV viewing, and it was unreasonably good. But for music, honestly, you'd need to spend an awful lot on dedicated AV equipment, say nothing of a soundbar, for something that just does the sheer musical joy that those items do. So where my line of business comes into consideration is if you are looking for something that's going to handle a guaranteed mixed bag of music and view and TV support, that's where my stuff starts to really earn its keep. And £1,500 will sort you quite a significant system. I don't want to give too much away, but one of the plans for 2021, both people have asked here and in comments about it, and Phil is interested as well. We are going to look at looking at certain system-based setups at given prices to cover off these eventualities. So I'll be throwing my hat into the ring on this as well. So you essentially have to work out how much music features in your plans, and then you do need to give serious thought to a classic looking system, basically.
Yep, good. So there you go. That's 3 different approaches to adding sound to your TV. Whichever one you go for is the one that's going to suit you and suit your surroundings. But there does seem to be this trend of moving back and going back to 2-channel, or going back to a soundbar from 5171 or even more speakers in a lounge, because it's a thing with modern lounges. It soon adds up. People are going for minimalist looks these days, Steve, and giant subwoofers and floor standers and all the rest of it. It doesn't really tie into that feel, does it? Or that design?
No, they're not what you'd call lifestyle friendly.
No.
Well, it sort of depends. The problem is that it can be, but again, going back to the £1,500 budget, that's more of a challenge, isn't it? The challenge is, even if you can have quite an elegant front stack, so screen nicely up on the wall, so on and so forth, neat and tidy installation, and 3 visible front speakers, that all looks pretty swish, but it all starts to fall down a bit on a lot of rear speaker installations. Even when they're tidy and professional, it's not particularly lifestyle-y, is it? That's the catch area for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I would argue that there are speakers all the way down to the £500-600 points, which are genuine talking point furniture, which, if that's what you're after. I mean, it was reviewed donkeys years ago. You only need to look at the ellipse on Planet. I mean, that's a very definite style statement.
Those are the round.
The spheres.
Globes, spheres.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, you can get those. There's a speaker for almost any environment, but the caveat to that is there's normally only 2 of them. So,
and manufacturers have looked at approaching this in different ways and trying to hide the speakers within the room. So, plenty of manufacturers have in-wall speakers.
Yep.
That you can put on the front wall, in ceiling speakers that you can put behind you. I don't know if they still do them, but they did a really nice set of THX certified ceiling speakers that had proper dispersion and everything else, so you could put them as rears or height speakers or whatever. So there are solutions, but on walls, spending a lot more money than £1,500 though. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I say on walls. I mean, because there's a lot of people, if you're renting, most landlords are going to be reticent about you channeling things like that. On walls, a while ago, has to be a while ago, because it was still when I was reviewing multi-channel. Again, as Phil points out, you're not going to get any change from your £1,500. But the ATC on walls that I did donkeys years ago, they were sensational. And whilst I'd hesitate to describe them as beautiful, very nice, tidy installation and a phenomenal sounding thing. So don't assume simply because it can't be securely bolted to the floor that it's not going to perform exceptionally well, because it can do just that.
Yep, and obviously there's lots of other manufacturers out there. I'm trying to remember the brand. There's another brand that make it look like artwork, isn't there? And
yes, Art Acoustic.
That's it. Yeah.
And then PMC have the wafers.
Yeah.
And there's, as you say, Phil, there's lots and lots of different options and a decent price spread on them as well. And it has to be said, a good custom install, oriented AV system within walls and so on and so forth, or simply behind a fixed screen, things like that, you can get some incredibly tight. But then obviously, again, unless you happen to be handy Andy, a long departed of changing rooms, that's going to cost you more than £1,500 to do. So
well, hopefully, Steve's article is up on the site, so go search it out. It's still on the homepage, so go and have a look at the article if you're interested in that. Interested in finding out a bit more about solutions that you can have for your living room. And what we're going to start doing going forward this year on the podcast as well is that we're going to cut back on the product reviews that we talk about, or go in depth on product reviews, because, well, the reviews are up on the site.
Go in depth on those.
We don't really need to talk about it on the podcast. So what we'd rather do is talk about subjects, like Ed's already pointed out. We're going to cover systems and possible systems that you could build for hi-fi. Any questions that you've got in terms of AV or hi-fi, or any subject matter that you think needs to be discussed on the podcast, then let us know. The best way to do that is probably in the thread underneath the podcast in the podcast forum, rather than the chat window on YouTube. But if you don't listen live or whatever, you can also send us an email to podcast@avforums.com. But do be aware that might end up in my junk folder which did happen with a question from someone recently, and we actually went via Steve, so we'll come to that in a sec. But like I say, any subjects that you think we need to be talking about, or if there's stuff like acronyms that we talk about every week on the podcast, like, you know, HDR or Dolby Vision or PQ, EOTF, that kind of thing, and you don't know what it means and you're a little bit lost, then do ask the question, and we will take the time and totally bombard you with technical detail and confuse you even more. Or we might just tell you what it means and, you know, be nice. So that's what we're planning on doing anyway. So if you've got any questions, so rather than us talking about reviews, we'll cover subjects like, is it better getting a soundbar or speakers, like we've discussed tonight? And like I say, there's an article up there as well. Right, before we wrap up on hardware, you took an interesting call on last Friday, Steve. I wasn't told about it, which was a bit annoying. But yeah, Samsung told you about a new little product that they have coming.
Yeah, I had a Zoom meeting with their engineer in Korea. He told me it was the world's first demonstration for anyone outside of Samsung. He may have been blowing smoke at my bum, I'm not sure. But that's what he said. So I was saying to him, well, that's the kiss of death. It's not going to work now. I've seen too many live demos where that's gone tits up very quickly. But anyway, this is a new feature. Now, I should stress, this is a feature that they're currently developing. It's not actually on any of the TVs yet. It might be on the new 2021 models, but that's still to be decided. So take that with a, you know, right now it's purely a demonstration of something that they may bring to the market, and it might even be something they can add to last year's TVs too. But again, that is yet to be decided. So, so this was just a demonstration of what they can do and what they're hoping to do and planning to do. But it hasn't been officially announced for any specific models, you know, or generations. So bear that in mind. But this is a new feature that they're working on. It's called EZCal. And put it simply, it's basically an app that you run on your phone. You connect your phone to the TV, and then it uses the phone's camera to measure the TV and run a calibration. And you know, the clues in the name, it's an easy calibration. And there are 3 options. You can do a quick one, quick cal, which takes 30 seconds, and that basically does a quick two-point calibration on the grayscale. You can do a basic calibration, which takes more like about 2 to 3 minutes, and that will do do a 20-point grayscale and also the gamma. Or you can do professional calibration. That's what they call it. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying it's equivalent to a professional calibration, but it's called that in the app. That takes more like 30 minutes. So with that one, and maybe with the 3-minute one, you might want to have some kind of tripod or something to hold the phone. Otherwise, you're going to have to sit there holding it against the screen for a bloody long time. So obviously, for 30 seconds, that's not a problem. Maybe even 3 minutes, you could probably do that. But for 30 minutes, you're definitely going to have some kind of device to hold the phone in front of the screen. But it's and that one will do both grayscale gamma and also the color gamma. So 3 options there, and I think you know, for the average punter, people that you know, not AVForums members, I basically mean your average person who probably doesn't even select the right picture mode. This is an interesting feature because it gives them a chance to get a much more accurate picture very easily and quickly without having to know very much themselves or get a professional in. Now, Samsung, obviously, I saw a demo. It worked in the demo, so that was great. They're claiming that they're targeting a delta E, an error of less than 0.5, which is very low. I mean, we talk about this often in our reviews. 3, a delta E of 3 is generally universally regarded in the industry as the visible thresholds. Once you get below 3, you shouldn't be able to see those errors. So if you're getting below 0.5, that's essentially perfect. You won't be able to see them. Now, obviously, if this gets released,
well, put it this way: I've got a Klein K10 and Calman and all the rest of it, and you can do the automatic auto cal, and you can set your preferences to 0.5 or below.
Yeah.
And the actual number of times that you get it actually under 0.5, even with professional kit, is not every time. You know,
that's a very low error. I mean, you know, if I was getting, you know, if I'm calibrating a TV and it's got errors of 0.5 or below, I'm pleased with that. Once you get below 1, you're in. I mean, I think they're being quite aggressive or quite ambitious in terms of their target of 0.5. If they can do it, then good luck to them. They did say, because it is available, it will be available when it gets launched for Android and iOS, so it works on both phones. And they said that they're really surprised at how modern phones, recent phones, how good the cameras are. Obviously, they're measuring in RGB and then they're converting into XYZ for the calibration aspect. But they said they've been really surprised at how accurate they can get these EZCals using mobile phone cameras. So I think it's quite. I mean, I did say to them, I said, this is going to put me out of a job as a calibrator. And they said, well, you said, you say that, but in a way, this kind of feature promotes the very idea of calibration, which a lot of people have never even heard of. So in fact, people could find, they'll think, oh, I didn't even know you could get a TV calibrated. And then that might set them on a journey to lead them to actually think, I want to get a fully professional calibration. So it might actually have benefit calibrators as much as take business away from them.
My cynical senses are tingling here at the minute, mainly because this is coming from Samsung, and Samsung don't have a great track record when it comes to creators' intent, Steve. You just have to look at their HDR cinema mode, which is supposed to be the most accurate out of the box, and it never tracks PQE-UTF. It's always too bright. And we've been telling them this for such a long time, and it seems to be falling on deaf ears, stuff like that. So, and the other thing is Samsung's picture modes. And again, I'm not having a go at Samsung, but I'm just reporting back what I've found with Samsung TVs is that their picture modes, they're never very accurate, and they're always towards the garish colors and so on. So I do find it a bit surprising that Samsung are bringing this technology in and this feature in. So is there any reason why?
Perhaps it's a response to comments exactly of that nature.
Yeah, again, I'm
well, I think also it might be offshoots. I mean, this was just to give it some background within the organization, because the guy doing the presentation, the engineer, I've known him before, met him before, and he basically said that within the company they have this basically what's effectively a competition amongst employees. If anyone's got an idea for something, a product, a feature, they can submit it. If the company thinks it's worth investing, developing, then they get selected. I think they select something like 500 a year across the entire organization of ideas to develop. They then develop them, and either they implement them on their products, or they sell them off to a third party, or if it doesn't work out at the end of the day, it's not what they wanted, then they might just let it go. But so this guy basically he's involved in the TV division. He suggested it as an idea, has developed it, and is now going to the point hopefully where it's going to become a product on the TVs. And I suspect partly this has come out of off the back of filmmaker mode, and there's been a lot more awareness and I guess promotion or news around the idea of creators' intent and maintaining that. And I think that's kind of rubbed off a little bit on Samsung. They thought, there is a market for this. There is an interest in more accurate picture modes and also in calibrating them as well. So I think it's probably just a natural progression in terms of all the manufacturers, not just Samsung, but I mean, they've all been going on. I mean, Samsung do support CalMan AutoCal, so this isn't, it's not unheard of for them. That they do other things, and all the manufacturers, I think, since you'll remember the early days, Phil, when you were going around doing presentations about having more calibration controls and more accurate out of the box settings, and look where we are now with filmmaker mode and with AutoCal and even with these kind of features.
I wasn't knocking it. I was looking at where it's come from, because you can only go on the experience that we've had with the TVs and the feedback that's been given and so on. So it's good. It's a good little feature. I welcome it. I'm going to try it out, obviously, if it does come to market, and we will measure it against our professional equipment and see how well it does do it. But I guess while you were speaking there, one of the things I was thinking about is that a lot of manufacturers' cinema modes now and accurate modes and even filmmaker mode, they're very, very close to being quite accurate anyway. I mean, delta E's are normally
often
around
below 3.
Yeah. So if it's just a case of tidying it up, running this and using the camera phones, then it probably will work. I mean, some companies have tried this in the past with cameras built into the TVs. I'm trying to remember which brand. I think it was Bang & Olufsen. Was it Toshiba or Bang & Olufsen?
Toshiba. Remember they launched a TV where it came with a little Well, that wasn't a camera, it was a meter, a small little meter. You could just.
No, I'm thinking of Bang & Olufsen, and it came out the top of the TV, and you run it around, and it was a camera, and it shone onto the
That
TV
sounds a bit
screen.
Bang & Olufsen, I have to say.
Yeah, it does sound very Bang &
So
Olufsen.
it has been tried in the past, but like you say, the technology is getting to the point now where the cameras are so good now in these mobile. I mean, I've done away with my DSLR. I use my camera phone now for photos because the quality is so good. So if they can do that, like you say, RGB and then convert it, spot on. Let's try it out. See how accurate it gets, because I think it's a cracking idea if it actually works. And if it's turning Samsung towards being a little bit more towards creators' intent, and we only look for one picture preset really in a TV to be that, they can do all their other stuff in other presets, then great. That'd be great. And especially with HDR. So I'm assuming this doesn't work with HDR though.
It does that. The professional option will do SDR and HDR.
Oh, it will, will it? Okay, that's interesting. So,
is there any indicator, Steve, that it plays nice with everybody's phones, or do people who happen to own a shiny new Galaxy S20 get better results?
No, it's as I said, it's available. It will be when it launches. It'll be available for Android and iOS. So obviously, depending on the age of the device and the quality of the camera, might affect it. But I should imagine it'll be available for the more recent models. But no, I mean, as I say, they said they were quite surprised, pleasantly surprised at how effective modern mobile phone cameras are for doing it.
I have to say that in a well-lit situation, the camera on my not particularly expensive Oppo Android phone does do some extraordinary things. You put the photo into Lightroom and check for deviation and so on and so forth. It is, provided that it's got the sun to help it, it can do some quite extraordinary things. I mean, the moment you get into low light situations, all bets are off. But the processes are deeply impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this will come along on this year's TVs, and we can have a bit of play with it. Are they going to charge for this, Steve, or has that not been decided yet?
They haven't decided yet. They didn't mention anything about it. I think it would be a free feature. It would just be an app that you just load on your phone. So I mean, it's regarded, I think, more as a promotional tool for Samsung TVs rather than a money earner. But okay. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's certainly it's an interesting idea from an unlikely place, really. As I said, this is kind of one guy's passion, and the company's decided to pursue it. So
yeah, good stuff.
One man against a multinational corporation. Make a film about it.
We'll see you later, Ken. Ken says, unfortunately, he's got to leave now. You've listened to the most interesting bit of the podcast anyway. So we'll see you in a bit, Ken. Right. Before we move on, we did have a question, two questions actually, that came in via Steve from Jim Beveridge. Apologies, Jim. You were told to get in touch with me, and then it went into my spam folder. And it wasn't until Steve mentioned it again that I actually found your email. But we will go through it now very quickly. Jim donated £10 back in December, so thank you very much, Jim, for doing that. Steve, why didn't you do it then? Question number one. Well, actually, I'll do question number one, and you can do question number two. So, question number one, can the collective each forecast which year can I get rid of my projector and replace it with a 120-inch electronic display for the same sort of money? I'm going to say...
specify how much he paid for his projector?
I'm assuming it'll only be about...
Well, in the next thing, he's got a JVC X5.
JVC X5
at the moment.
So if you bought that new, he's paying $5,000. So let's
right,
say
okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to say 2053.
Ooh, right, okay, blimey.
Theoretically...
Good start to any question.
It could be done.
Well, yeah, you could have a roll-up OLED screen at 120 inches, or with micro LED, you're talking about using these modular panels to create any screen size.
Yep.
I think maybe the modular approach with micro LED was the more likely solution going forward. But I'd say it's another 10 years.
Oh, for the same sort of money as his projector, add another 10 years on top.
Well, yeah, but you think it's amazing how
we keep saying that,
isn't it? I mean, 10 years ago, you couldn't buy a 4K TV. 10 years, I'm trying to think, when was the first 1080p OLED TVs.
Oh, it was
2012,
Pioneer and
2013.
Fujitsu were the first ones on the market, and they were
But like the first
12 grand.
55-inch LGs and Samsungs, we saw those in, I think it was late 2013. So that's just over 7 years ago. That was a 55-inch 1080p OLED, and that was 10 grand.
Yeah.
So we've gone from 55-inch 1080p OLEDs at 10 grand to 55-inch 4K OLEDs for $1,000 in 7 years. So it can be quite quick.
Again, it's if there's going to be a market there as well. Is there a market for having a 120-inch screen? I mean, you could do it right now. You could go and buy a crystal LED from Sony. Yeah. It'll cost you $100 grand, but you could do it now if you were rich enough. You could have that.
Well, Netflix, you've seen the pictures of Netflix's new mastering suite, which uses a crystal LED screen.
Yeah, I saw that.
Amazing.
Yeah. So,
but that wouldn't have been cheap.
Yeah, and I mean, theoretically, like Steve says, it'll happen one day. For the same sort of money as your projector, you're looking at least a decade. I'd say even longer than that. Question number 2.
No, I was going to say, but Jim does actually make an interesting point in his question, which is, and this is a point that you and I have made many times, Phil, which is it's a very different experience watching a projected image to a self-emissive image.
Yeah, even I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed that I can often watch the same film or parts of the same film on an OLED, and then on the JVC, and it just looks better on the JVC.
Yeah.
Even though the blacks may not be quite as black, there's something about the projected image when it's a film that just looks better.
Yeah. I'll agree with you on that one, because I stood in front of, wasn't this year, it was last year. I stood in front of the micro LED TV, the 252-inch one, and thought, well, would I want to have this in my home, because it is incredibly bright display and incredibly hot as well, I've got to say, because I was standing quite close to it and there was a lot of heat coming off. And you just think, well, I'd rather have a projected image. At this moment in time, watching film, I'd rather have a projected image. Right, question number 2, Steve, quickly.
Yeah, I promised myself, not me, Jim, sorry, has promised himself a new AV system this year. I calibrated, this is me now, I calibrated his system 5 years ago, apparently. So he's asking what components is it time to upgrade? So his current system is, it's pretty good, a JVC X5000 projector, the LG 55EF950V TV, a Sonos 5.1 system. He's got a 9-foot screen, grand view, and his sources are Humax satellite and Apple TV 4K. My first question is, why haven't you got a 4K display? And if so, if you're thinking of getting one, buy the UB820, basically. So that's your sources sorted out. Otherwise, those are good sources. Apple TV 4K, fair enough. That's still good. Still the best. And you've got a Humax satellite, so fair enough. There's no difference there. Screen, well, screen's a screen, so I wouldn't worry about that. So that leaves you really with the projector. The 5000 is a good projector. The X5000 is a good projector. If you've got the money, I mean, I absolutely love the N7 and the N5. I think there's not much difference with just the filter. So if you've got the budget for it, they are superb projectors, really are superb, and I think you'd be very happy with that upgrade. TV wise, the EF950 is getting a bit old now. If you do upgrade, you go.
If it was me, I would be saying, do you want 4K HDR? Because if you do, then I would suggest that the screen is where you would upgrade your LG TV. I'd upgrade there with a C9 if you can still get one. If not, a C10 or maybe a HZ1000 from Panasonic. That's where I would upgrade there. So you can get HDR, wide color gamut. So you can enjoy that and still have the projector there and watch your films and so on the projector. So that's where I would go.
That would be the first protocol. Sonically, if you're happy with the Sonos system, I mean, obviously you can go to immersive audio, which we were talking about earlier on in this podcast. That's a question that comes down to, if this is, I can't remember now because it was 5 years ago, but if this is the lounge, you start to talk about, do you want to put speakers all over your lounge, or are you happy with what you've got? Because a good 5.1 system always sounds good. And adding speakers above or extra speakers at the sides whilst it will be more immersive, you know, the difference may not be as big as you think it's going to be. So you're probably right, Phil. I think the first step port of call would be to upgrade the TV so you can enjoy 4K and HDR and get all the benefits from that from both, you know, streaming apps in the TV or via Apple TV.
Yeah. Right. Hopefully, we've answered your question here, Jim.
Good suggestions there.
Yeah, some good.
I mean, obviously, I think you should sell it all and get a decent turntable fronted system.
He sent a photo of his living room, which unfortunately I didn't give it to Stuart so he could pop it up. But what a fantastic view he's got out of his living room. It's Southampton.
Yes,
big
that's right.
Window looking out onto the
on the beach.
Oh, nice.
So yeah. Cracking view. I'd switch the TV off and just sit and look out the window.
Listening to records.
Yeah. And finally, he says, P.S. Do you ever watch Vintage Voltage on Quest TV? He thought the MG conversion made great viewing. Probably a subject we'll come back on. Yes, I have watched that program, not on Quest. I think I watched it on Discovery because it has one of my favorite YouTubers on there as well, the Petrol Ped. Is a presenter on there, and it was really interesting to see them what they were doing with EV conversions. Basically, they did the Ferrari 308, you know, the Magnum Ferrari, and completely converted that to full on electric, and it was fantastic.
Phil's got his Mustang booked in for it. 800 AA batteries. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, all you could ask for.
So thanks very much, Jim. We're coming back in a sec with some software. Quickly, Ed, because I know there's not a great deal of albums about. Album of the week.
Album of the week is a bit of an odd one. What's his chops? Perry Farrell. He of Jane's Addiction.
He's still alive.
Yes, he's not dead.
He was HIV positive for decades.
Well, he's still not dead. You know, as I say, some developments have been made in that regard. He's launched an anthology box set called the Glitz, the Glamour, where he revisits stuff that he's done both with Jane's Addiction and with other people. It's rehashed, rejiggled, tinkered around with. Hang on a second, I don't know if it's come up yet. If you're looking at that and thinking £75, get expletive deleted. Don't worry, it's all on streaming services. If you are a big Perry Farrell fan, it's really good. It's well worth, you know, it's possibly worth the investment in physical media. But I thought it was a enjoyable romp through the stuff that he's done over a very long and storied career. It's been sensitively revisited. I thought it was an entertaining listen to enjoy on streaming services, of which it is on all of them. So that's the album of the month, as you may surmise from this, where I'm, you know, choosing an anthology over new music. There's still not a huge amount out there, and I didn't want to do 2 weeks on the bounce of BP electronic stuff because, much as I love that, I know that not all of you do. So that's why we've done this.
I've got an album.
Go on.
It came out last year, but I only discovered it a couple of days ago, much to my delight. It's called In Memory of My Feelings, which is a joint venture between Bernard Butler, who used to be the original guitarist of Suede, and Catherine Ann Davis, who's also known as the Anchoress. Must admit, never heard of her, but I'm a huge Bernard Butler fan, and it's a really good album. They even though they apparently didn't know each other at all before they worked together, they have great chemistry, and as always, Bernard's guitar work is fantastic. So
good.
Worth checking out.
Normally, Steve, I'd berate you for choosing an album of the week which wasn't from this week, but I'm about to choose a vinyl release of the month which isn't from this month, so I can't get on my high horse. I'm going to very quickly flag up the fact that Bleep, who are an electronic-based music store in the UK, crucially not Amazon, if you wish to support an online retailer who is not Amazon, have had a repressing done of Global Communications 7614, and they actually had it done in September last year, and I didn't notice. 7614 is one of the seminal pieces of ambient electronica. It's up there with the stuff that Eno did in the 80s and 90s. It is enormously important. It's enormously significant. It is getting on for 30 years old, and you listen to it and it still sounds absolutely magnificent. So if you are a turntablist and you like that sort of thing, it is available for you to buy from Bleep for a not wholly unreasonable £25. I've procured myself a copy because it's a hole in my collection which has now been filled. Well worth a look if you are a vinyl person. If you've never listened to it before, just kick back with a glass of whatever ails you and enjoy it. I envy you for enjoying it for the first time. I think it is a truly landmark piece of music. So all good. There is no playlist of the month because nobody's got any money and the streaming services have fired their curated content teams. So playlists are utterly unimaginative. I will be doing what I can to see if I can find some sort of suggestions. The only one that amused me was, I don't know if you've noticed on social media, there is a sea shanty craze going on at the moment. Somebody on Spotify did a playlist called Sea Shanties You Could Technically Expletive Deletive To, which I didn't want to listen to it because it was just full of sea shanties, but I just admired the playlist title. So there you go. That's music software, done and dusted.
Well, thanks for doing that a week early, Ed, because end of the month was going to be next week, but there you go. We've done it.
Oh, I didn't realise. Well, no, but end of the month, next month is February. So
yeah, but
well, there you go. We've
saved
some valuable time for next month.
Exactly. We can talk a bit more about hardware next week.
Oh.
Plus, also, it's shanty, not shanty. Bloody hell!
Right, the whole garage thing, isn't it?
Right. Shall we talk some movies then? So, No Time to Die has been pushed back to 8th of October.
No time to get released, by the sounds of it.
No time to see.
They are adamant that it's not going to come to a streaming service, that it is going to get a cinematic release at the cinema. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that one, boys.
Yeah, no way it's coming out in October.
Did you see that they're getting sued by all the product placement companies because all the products that were put in it are now out of date?
Out of date, yeah.
I mean, ultimately,
they're talking about doing reshoots to do inserts for new
ultimately,
products.
This is the thing. It's become it's an albatross on their accounts where you think, oh, we have to make the effort to be released properly to clear this enormous black hole. But the longer it's left, the more preposterous the problem becomes. And yes, you say, when you're reduced to having to film new cut sequences, so the 2020 model phone and watch and all the rest of it becomes the 2021 model,
isn't it?
Well, what's astonished me, I don't want to sound smug at this point, but I flagged this in the comments section when the news story went up that, product placement people must be furious. And needless to say, the story's going. But I said in my comment, people like Omega won't care because their stuff is. But no, apparently one of the companies that's flagged it is Omega.
Yeah, it's Omega and Nokia of all people. I mean, I didn't know
Nokia,
they still made phones.
Nokia's another company.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So yeah, it's just it's one of those things where you understand the sentiment, but just from a purely practical perspective, this is becoming a catastrophe of it. Not necessarily in a social sense, but in an economic sense. That there's no right time to try and get this one out the door really anymore. So I don't know. What
I think Richard Sims said, "Do you think the actors will have visibly aged when they do the reshoots?" In the case of Daniel Craig, is going to be on a Zimmer frame before this film comes out.
Full on Roger Moore syndrome.
There has been some good aged memes going around with him, and aged to his 80s. And has the film still not come out? What do you think about this, Tom? You're awful quiet up there.
I think I've said on the pod before that I have zero interest in James Bond, and I couldn't care less either way. It's got to the point now where when it was coming out on time, I didn't care about it, and now that it's been delayed and delayed and delayed, I care about it even less. And I am looking forward to the day where we don't have to think about who the next James Bond is going to be. It is a franchise that I hope dies.
There's not going to be another James Bond because this film's never going to come out.
that would suit me down to the ground.
Yeah, cool. Steve, who have you been Googling this week?
No blame Mira Furlan on me. It's not my fault. Do you know, for those who don't know who Mira Furlan is, shame on you. But she was in Babylon 5, a series that I absolutely adore when it was originally on back in the early 90s. And she also popped up quite regularly, I think, in the first season at least of Lost.
She was a regular all the way through, I think.
Yeah, but I gave up on Lost after season 2, so I couldn't really say with any certainty that she was in anything else after that.
Yeah, it was a really sad bit of news. She was 65, and
yeah, she died of West Nile fever.
West Nile fever,
yeah.
Which is almost unheard of, as far as I can
Particularly when you're not in the West Nile. In America, I believe. But she was she from Croatia or somewhere like that?
Yeah.
I mean, when the war broke out.
That's right. She was. That's right. The technically Yugoslavian, is she?
That's right. It was what would have been Yugoslavia before it became various other countries. And she was doing theatre work, I believe, and was still working 2 different parts of the country, and got a lot of grief at the time from because they accused her of not taking one side or the other, and that she left the country and moved to America because they were death threats. The Yugoslavian theatre people have since apologized after her death, which is a bit late, I'd said, for the way they treated her at the time. But she was great. I mean, I loved Babylon 5. It was a fantastic series.
Yeah, and there was for anyone who was a follower of Babylon 5, J. Michael Straczynski, who wrote all
pretty much
episodes
every
of Babylon
episode,
5 bar 2, who were written by Peter David, left a really touching tribute on Twitter about his time with her and working with her. And so if you look for JMS's Twitter, then you can read that, and it's just a really nice, heartfelt tribute. And it was a sad day.
Obviously, he wasn't a film star, but he did interview film stars. Larry King died this week as well. And I think he was in a couple of films as well, wasn't he? Certainly, he had a cameo.
Normally as Larry King.
Yeah, he played himself a lot.
yeah. 87, I think he was.
Yeah, he was 87, whereas Mira was only 65, I believe. I've got to say, Babylon 5 is cursed. Don't blame me again. But I just checked through out of 10 of the lead actors. Them all. Out of 10 of the lead actors, 6 are dead. And all died young. I didn't realize until I was reading it on Tuesday or Wednesday when they announced her death. I didn't realize that the original lead of Babylon 5, he left the series after series 1. And you thought, why did he leave? And it turned out, and it was only announced after his death, that he was suffering from schizophrenia. And that's why he had to leave the show. Did not know that until this week.
I was about to say, in very poor taste, did they all die of appalling CGI poisoning? But
the CGI should have been better. They wanted to do it at high def, and for some reason, this is ridiculous. They wanted to do the CGI in high definition to future-proof the show because it was shot on 35mm.
Yeah,
and it was actually framed safe, with so it could be reframed at 16:9.
That's right. But then they
wouldn't pay $5,000 for a high def monitor.
Yeah. And
Warners wouldn't do that.
And they ended up cutting down all of the CGI scenes and blowing them up.
They butchered it.
For 4:3. They do not exist in 16? Like they do not exist in their original form anymore. So
they cut them at the time they released on disc. They cut them down from PAL masters as well. So with the US discs looked appalling. Yeah. Apparently, though, on iTunes, I believe now, and some other places, you can now watch remastered versions of Babylon 5. They've actually remastered it using the 35mm camera negative for the non-effects shots. Unfortunately, the effects are still standard definition, but it's now framed at 4:3, and they've scanned the camera negative, so that's good news at least.
Licensed saxophone just point out, Larry King was indeed married 8 times, twice the same person.
Blimey, that's even more than.
Someone on Twitter was pointing out that this is a unique phenomenon of people Larry King's age, because Elizabeth Taylor is slightly older, but so on and so forth. Effectively, it's the loosening of sexual mores, but still seen within the conservative context of getting married. So you just aren't going to see someone get married 8 times again unless it's for reality television. So
plus, no one could afford to do it these days.
An interesting snippet there. I thought quite an interesting sociological comment.
Right, I guess we need to get back to talking about movies.
Sorry, yes, Richard Sims just pointed out, that's right. It's Babylon 5 is on HBO Max. Not much good to us. Someone did point out earlier on in the thread, actually, about Godzilla. Where are we supposed to see it in this country?
Yeah, exactly, because it's
Good question.
HBO Max as well, isn't it? Kaz film review. Have we got one?
Oh, well, we could save time and leave it for close to the time because it doesn't look like it's going to come out until the fall. It's Shadow in the Cloud, and it's available on US iTunes. It's been picked up in this country, but I think it's planning a November release, which is just unfathomable to me.
Yeah.
Kind of a blend of Overlord, Memphis Belle, and that episode of Twilight Zone was
the Amazing Stories episode, the one that Spielberg directed with Kevin Costner. Sounds like that, basically.
It's kind of a blend of all of those. Gremlins. Did anyone
point out that women didn't fly bomber missions?
Yeah, everybody in the cast of characters is extremely sexist towards her, which is the point. It's a female director and a very tough female protagonist, but they do it well. Chloe Grace Moretz is good in it. It's schlocky but
4.7 out of 10.
You're getting some pretty bad reviews, actually.
I was quite looking forward to it.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was when it was first described to me, I thought that sounds like nonsense that I would enjoy, and then I happened to catch Max Landis's name, Hollywood's favorite nepotist,
fallen out of favor big time.
Everyone's distanced him.
I could use some quite strong language about him, but I probably won't. But supposedly it has been almost completely rewritten from the ground up, and his name remains on the credits as a mere formality because of the Screenwriters Guild. So maybe it is not going to be written by Max Landis.
To be honest, it doesn't ride or die on its screenwriting talents. It's pretty trashy, but I enjoyed it. I mean, Overlord's pretty trashy. If you know what you're walking into, I think there's a little bit of fun to be had there. But apparently we have to wait 11 months or 10 months to see it. No idea why. It's going to come straight to streaming then. By which time I'm guessing everyone will have seen it.
Pirated the bejesus out of it anyway.
Well, that's a question. How are you two seeing it?
Oh, I haven't yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it. Sorry.
US iTunes is not that hard to buy legitimately and watch in the UK, is it? I mean, HBO Max isn't that hard to do, but it's still unfathomable that they haven't come around with a sensible way of doing it. You know, is a pain to run an HBO Max account and a VPN and do all of the rest of it.
It's particularly silly that they've said that they're delaying Shadow in the Cloud, because you just have to look at it to know that, like, this is not a cinema tentpole release. This is not a film.
Really not.
Regardless, like, if it was released,
queuing up for this.
Yeah, outside of pandemic circumstances, they're not making a metric ton of money on this.
No,
it's a baffling decision.
An upper tier Netflix movie. In the waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that praise, shall we move on to disc review, Kaz?
Sure.
You've been looking at some 4Kers.
Yeah, a couple of really nice discs in Dolby Vision. I saw the Old Boy set from Arrow. I still can't believe it's only been like 3 months since they released it on Blu-ray. I guess we should have all seen this coming because it was 4K remaster they did for it, and not long afterwards they jumped. In fact, maybe they'd already started doing 4K.
I think they had. They'd already announced their first 4Ks when Old Boy.
Yeah, my brain seems to think they actually announced an Old Boy 4K back there and then pulled it, but I couldn't find anything like that in the PR. So it's no surprise really that it's turned up. It's a bit of a pain for people who forked out for all the lavish box sets and Blu-ray, and then 2 months later have to get it. It does look better though, so you're gonna have to do it if you like the film, and it's a great film.
I don't really want to see a man eat an octopus in 4K.
It just doesn't matter. People get hung
eat
up
a live octopus, just to make it clear.
Yeah. Doesn't you can watch it and just pretend it's CGI. Really, it doesn't.
You can't pretend it's CGI because I know it's not. He eats a live octopus.
Rather him than me.
Spoilers. And he's a vegetarian Buddhist.
There are worse things that happen in the movie.
Yeah, as far as that goes.
Not to a live octopus, they don't.
Yeah, all right. Collateral's the other one, which is an interesting thing. This is Cruise's.
Can I just say, I adore
film.
this film. I have all from the moment I saw it. I think it's absolutely, it's arguably my favourite Michael Mann film. It's played big, not least because the two main actors in it are sort of playing against type.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoy it.
I suppose that Fox didn't really have much of a type back then.
No, I grant you, but in terms of
Or
things he
since.
sort of matured into.
Yes,
But,
yeah. I mean,
I have a question, Kaz,
yes.
because Collateral was shot at 1080p on early digital cameras.
Well,
What's it look like?
mostly. I think it looks spectacular.
Yeah, there's a couple of scenes
hang on a second,
film, aren't there? But most of it is shot digitally.
Yeah, the nightclub scene shot on film. When I say I think it looks spectacular, you're never going to demo this. And I said this in the thread. You're never going to demo it. But the Blu-ray was washed out blacks and heavy digital noise. This is a lot smoother and proper decent blacks. I mean, it looks the way obviously it was always supposed to look. And the colors are nice and less sickly and more intended that kind of street lighting vibe. I think it looks the way it should be. And I have to say, it's a little bit surprising it was shot in that resolution. I mean, it looks good. They've done well with it. So yeah, to all those who are crying about resolution, it probably is a prime example.
It wasn't just a resolution I was thinking. I was thinking like it's probably like an 8-bit camera, 1080p,
yeah, I mean,
Rec 709. What have they got to play with?
If anything, I feel like the fact that Mann elected to start shooting on digital at a time when not many people were, and shooting in a very particular way, like motion is all over the place. It looks proper soap opera.
Yeah, so a lot of digital noise as well. He deliberately did that with
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice. It
Straight
was
off.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I thought it was shot on film, wasn't it?
No, it's shot digital as well.
Shot digitally as well. I know Public Enemies looks awful because
Public Enemies I don't think it works well for, and he went full digital for Black Hat. So that's the first one he did full digital, but we don't talk about Black Hat. But anyway, yeah, I thought it looked really good, and once you got used to the way he styled it, it really suited it, and it is an upgrade. It's what you'd want from it. I mean, you need inky blacks. You need the digital noise to be less intrusive and more texture. It's nice, and I think Cruise is great in the role.
It's properly good.
I have issues with its ending. I have issues with the way it gets a bit serial killery, in the final act. But I think that it's nice seeing Cruise do something out of his all-American poster boy hero element, because he proper embraces it, right down to the nuances. The best things in it are the little conversations he has in the car where you can tell they're like Jamie Foxx is digging at his psyche about an abusive background or whatever, and Cruise is trying to grin his way out of it, but you can see a few cracks in the veneer there, like he is missing something, and he knows it, some kind of humanity. And I think Cruise gets that really right. And another thing I didn't realize he gets really right is the shooting. I've forgotten how good he was at it, and I didn't realize. I looked it up. They use it to train tactics for weapons officers. They use shots of him doing a quick draw, because he does a special quick draw where you shoot from the hip and then you close in and you shoot properly.
They also show the scene where Val Kilmer reloads in heat.
Yeah,
is shown to Marines as this is how, if a Hollywood actor can change a magazine this well, this is how you should be able to do it too.
I think the whole shootout in Heat is shown as an example of how a small selection of people, like I think it was just Kilmer and De Niro come the end of it, can take on a whole slew of cops if they do it tactically, reloading and taking it in turns and then moving. Yeah, I think, but I mean, Cruise is lightning quick in this, and it was interesting because he's not really a shooter in his previous movies, and Mann said he really took to it because he's a very physical actor. And
let's face it. I mean, the man has many idiosyncrasies, but he genuinely does just go for it in anything that he's given the opportunity to go for it in.
It's 300%. Yeah, it's. I mean, couple his shooting with the sound of Mann is like is like Nolan when it comes to shooting.
only good.
Yeah. I mean, he goes proper bass.
Well, guns in real life are loud.
Yes, it's another thing I addressed on the thread. I've done a couple of times at the range, and it's left me with permanent damage through proper protective headphones. I wouldn't do it again. Guns sound threateningly loud. They don't sound like they do in like
it is
Arnie
a controlled
movies.
explosion, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So I quite like it when he's letting off a few shots. You really do hear them. So
I do love the way that Condo 007 may have inadvertently given us our quote of the podcast. First one, I love Collateral, all in caps. And then second, he's so hard in it, and it just works on every level, really. Little bit of filth there. So.
Well, I mean, moving it on swiftly before we go way off tangent, Ed. Steve, you got something to say about Tenet?
Well, Kaz has set this up nicely actually because
I tried to.
Over Christmas, yeah, thank you. I finally got around to watching Tenet, the film that did not save the cinema last year, as to be said. And I wanted to ask the question to the guys, put it out there: has Nolan got up his own arse?
Can we just can we just all agree that Tenet, for those who've seen it as a movie, is fine? It's not like I've seen a lot of hate, like full blown, this is terrible. As a movie, it's okay. It's an entertaining.
Look, I understood it. It's a nonsense concept, but it's well executed.
Yeah. Totally. And it's got some great scenes in it.
You cannot enjoy the action scenes because you're always sitting there thinking, right, what's going on now?
It has got an element.
And any film where I have to do homework at the end, I'm really.
I think
Steve, me and you are the opposite. I love a movie where you have to do homework afterwards.
That's because you're a teacher.
but there's good films like that make you think afterwards. And
well, Inception's always the one I go to. That's the good Nolan version of Nolan, the good version of Nolan, where it's an interesting concept, brilliantly executed, looks imaginative, some really fun action sequences, fantastic cast. It really holds together. I watched it after Tenet just because I wanted to prove the point to myself. I think Tenet is the opposite, where it's
too far. He has gone
too far. Yeah,
he has gone too far. I still like his movies, and I still think it's the only movie I can think of. I mean, like unlike something like Wonder Woman, the only movie I can think of where it rewarded a visit to the cinema.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think that might be a difference for you, Steve.
I mean, I watched it in my home cinema, so I was lucky in that sense.
I know, but it is a big movie.
Trust me, I got a cinema experience. Don't you worry. I also reframed it. Well, not reframed it. I masked it to 2.35 to 1, and it looked perfectly framed, including the fact the subtitles were where they should be, just above where the black bars were. So,
did you re-edit it chronologically as well?
I look forward to the Withers edit.
It looks amazing. I mean, it's shot on 65mm on IMAX, and the picture quality is stunning. It's the loudest soundtrack I've ever heard.
Yeah,
I still can't understand what anyone's saying.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think it's got some exceptional moments in it. The hairs go up on my arm when they do the first assault in the opera house, and the beat kicks in. He's done some really good things in it, but he definitely has gone too far. I find it interesting also that he's severed ties with. Is it Warner? He's severed ties.
Is he? Because there were rumors going around last week. He's doing another Batman film.
No, I mean, I think what happened was he did Tenet, didn't do very well. He got upset that they announced that they were releasing everything to HBO Max. He said it's a nonsense that they treat filmmakers like this, and besides, HBO Max is like the worst streaming platform on the planet.
Yeah, he didn't do himself any favors with that.
No, so they're no longer working together, apparently. So
I should imagine after Tenet, Warners were like, "Thank God for that."
Yeah. I mean, it would be. I'd like him to do something a little bit smaller. I mean, he's shown what he can do with things like Memento.
Imagine if you went back.
Film.
Yeah, imagine if you went back to something like Following, like just super low budget, super low key. That would be amazing.
I think, Sony could lure him in for a Bond film.
What about Netflix? You could go to Netflix.
What the good streaming service?
So hilarious if after all of that talk about theatrical and doing film, and
he gave us Outside the Wire 2.
Yeah, he went full Netflix. Yeah,
I would watch that. Outside the Wire is like cut price Nolan for sure.
but yeah,
it was incomprehensible.
Yeah,
I think he's gone too far. But I still think bad Nolan is a cut above. I mean, it's not like bad Michael Bay.
No, I'll tell you, the man does have a talent.
Yeah,
I'll tell you though, I've listened to all you guys go on and on and on for months on the podcast about it, and it's come out in 4K disc, and I was hovering over the buy button a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, nope, not going to bother.
Just wait until
time to let go of that balloon.
Keep it forever.
Yeah, I think it was Interstellar that did it because it was. Yeah.
Well, you've seen Dunkirk, but haven't you, Phil?
Dunkirk's brilliant.
Yeah.
I really like Dunkirk. Because again, it's simplified. He's not doing anything.
Well, he's doing a bit of messing around with timelines. My dad said
it's messing the timelines, but it's not overly complicated. I mean, you can follow where they all converge, and you know where you are in space, because he gives you that at the beginning, because you get each shot and it tells you what the time frame is on each shot at the beginning of the film, so you can work it out and you can follow it and you know where it converges and so on. Best 5:1 mix I've heard in a long time. The sound design on that is astonishing for a 5.1 mix. Brilliant.
That video that does around on Twitter where it cuts on Dunkirk with Kenneth Branagh going home, and it immediately switches over to Mamma Mia where they're doing the whole dancing queen in the boats. Every time I watch Dunkirk now and that doesn't happen is somehow actually really quite disappointing.
Yeah. But no, it was Interstellar for me where I just thought, nah, it's I didn't hate Interstellar. I just didn't enjoy it either.
I really liked Interstellar.
It's good. It's of the genre that has come to be known as surprise Matt Damon. Thor Ragnarok is also in that genre.
I mean, I would say that Tenet. One thing I did see on social media that I wholeheartedly agree with is that Tenet may well be peak cinematic beard of this particular era. We're going to see a tail off in cinematic beard from this point onwards.
Know. There's going to be plenty of COVID.
It's a high watermark of. I mean, when we're not talking about period stuff, it's in terms of contemporary filmmaking, it's peak cinematic beard for 20 years.
I just think Nolan's lucky you can blame Tenet's failure on COVID, because it would have bombed in real life, in a normal year anyway.
Say what you mean, Steve. Don't hold back.
No, and Interstellar's rubbish. I really hate films that claim to be scientifically accurate and then aren't remotely scientifically accurate. I love that we're in a race against time, so we can go to this planet or this planet where every hour we're on the surface is 7 years on Earth. Yeah, I think I'm going to go for the first planet. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's closer, and they didn't know they were going to get trapped. And
also, but there's the magical power of love that transcends space and what utter cobblers.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 from me.
Bollocks.
Yeah.
Well, on that's
right. This news.
Right. This news. Yeah, there wasn't any until about 30 seconds ago.
Where did that appear from? Who put that in?
So the trick is to put it in at the last minute, and I mean, I only just, to be fair, I thought about it.
Made it up.
No, the press release still hasn't come through from it, but the giveaway is that Xavier doing a steelbook, but Gattaca's coming to 4K.
Yeah,
in a month's time. So Xavier way ahead with their 4K release, but the actual press release from Sony is a little bit behind. But
there's not much in the pipeline, but Gattaca, Elysium, Wonder Woman 1984, if you want to put yourself through that. And best of all, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah,
I saw that. Interesting to see what they do with that. Yeah,
in the latest swathe of Arrow announcements as well, appealing to nobody except me is Beyond Reanimator, which is it's the second Reanimator sequel, and it is terrible. But I am
Is it coming in 4K?
No, it's not. It's not. Just coming to Blu-ray, not 4K.
I think Arrow are planning True Romance and The Frighteners in 4K, judging by the inserts that are coming in.
I have heard some rumors about their 4K titles.
I'd love both of those.
I'd have both of those.
That they're the Criterion thinking about shifting over to 4K this year. I mean, that could just be another one of these True Lies is coming out. rumors, couldn't it?
The Abyss. The Abyss.
Every year is the Abyss coming
Actually,
out.
True Lies was on telly last week. I recorded it. In HD, so at least I can watch it.
Channel 4 HD.
Yeah, Channel 4. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
The memes that have been going around this week with Bernie. Did you see the True Lies one?
Where was he?
No, I've seen many Bernie memes.
Oh no, I saw. Oh no, Jamie. Yeah, I saw the one that Jamie Lee Curtis posted.
Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, it was brilliant. Really funny. Right, TV show review. Star Trek Lower Decks. It's on Amazon Prime. I have resisted pressing play.
I lasted 5 minutes before I turned off.
Okay, Tom, you liked it.
Well, I think Steve's reaction is not uncommon. It's an acquired taste. So essentially it's a Star Trek sitcom, animated Star Trek sitcom, and it's created by
Mike. Bad as it sounds.
Mahan. Well, I'm going to come to that in a second because I've got some thoughts on this, but it's created by an alum of Rick and Morty, and it hews really close to like the structure and style, especially in the dialogue of Rick and Morty. But because it carries a Star Trek label, has none of the bite. It is purely people speaking extremely fast and referencing Star Trek constantly, and I think the nods and the cameos and the references in it, I think, are pitched just right. They are pitched to appeal to someone like me, and they did laugh. But the original stuff around those references and cameos is just paper thin. And to come back to what Steve was saying about a Star Trek sitcom being as bad as it sounds, it's kind of only a half a criticism, because I actually think this is the only sort of Star Trek that they should be making. Like, it's something with a healthy blend of reverence and irreverence, which takes the piss out of a now defunct sci-fi franchise. And I enjoyed it in the same way that I enjoyed, if you remember, the Futurama episode where no fan has gone before, or Galaxy Quest, or
large chunks of Family Guy.
Well, yeah, but the jokes are fun, but the show is just its jokes at the moment. It doesn't really hold up against any other metric. Like I say, it's kind of fuel for the fire in my heart, which is that we shouldn't have new Star Trek. We should just have things that, remember old Star Trek. And I don't think anybody wants new Star Trek.
I don't know.
We've had TV series that have claimed to be Star Trek.
Yeah,
I'd be up for seeing weird mishmashes of franchises. I mean, Star Trek versus the Alien mythos.
I can tell you, if you look at IDW comics, you will find a plethora of Star Trek.
I know,
Predator,
but I don't want to read
Star Trek Transformers, Star Trek Ghostbusters, whatever you like, it's all there already.
Predator, Batman, Terminator,
I'm
Robocop.
40. I don't read them.
But there hasn't been a Star Trek that's been embraced by Star Trek fans since Enterprise entered in 2005, and even that was begrudgingly accepted after a couple of seasons, basically. And I think that CBS kind of know that too. They know that if they make a clone of 90s Trek, it's going to land like a wet fish. It would look wrong in the current era of like prestige TV. You can't make 90s Star Trek anymore. It just wouldn't work.
The thing that annoyed me, Tom, is that Discovery looks fantastic, sounds fantastic, has all the production values there, has some decent cast members and some decent actors. Yet the story, the script writing is what lets it down.
The writing
is terrible.
10 million on effects and sets, and $150 on script.
But this is the thing. They're operating now on the assumption that it's basically a given that Star Trek fans don't like Star Trek anymore. So their tentpole titles like Discovery and Picard, they're not looking for Trekkies or Trekkers or however that you want to identify. They're trying to make something new.
Who are they looking for then?
No, and slapping a legacy title on it for name recognition only, just to get it sold, to get it made. And And
but who's watching it other than Trek fans?
you'd be surprised. I think so. Yeah, you've got Trek fans who are gluttons for punishment, like me. But it also has a surprisingly large following on the internet discovery for sure.
Really?
Don't know.
Mad
Yeah,
people.
Watches it.
have a look into it. Have a look into it. It does. It's got its fans. But it's
I'm looking forward to Red Letter Media's take on season 2.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to
season
that.
3. Season 3.
Really looking forward to that.
But
Because those two are the biggest Star Trek fans.
Yeah, they're real geeks,
there.
real Star Trek geeks.
And it's really entertaining to see their take on it. It really is.
but yeah, so overall, I thought Lower Decks was fun. There's not a lot to it, but I enjoyed it as a reminder of what I like about Star Trek, which was nice. But I don't, as a one season wonder, it would be lovely. They're going to keep making it, and it's going to get less funny as time goes on, I think. Yeah,
that's assuming that you find it funny to start with.
Which I did.
Okay. Right.
And on that bombshell,
just making sure. Wanda Vision, I've decided that I need to watch that weekly because I was going to wait and binge it all in one. But unfortunately, the internet being the internet, it's very,
yeah,
very...
and essentially, unless you lock yourself in a hole, it doesn't work that way.
No, we already are.
Well, no, we are locked. You're right. We're isolated individually, but they were then connected to this enormous, shouty global consciousness.
Did you watch the 3 episodes, Phil?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
It's
the joke running thin?
Yes, it is. it is for me now. It's very clever, and let's face it, right? Marvel have got to the point where they can do this. You know, they're so popular now that they can go off the wall and do something different like this. I understand why it's not landing with a lot of people and why people are getting fed up with it and moving on. I can see that. I think they've taken the wrong approach. I think maybe 1 or 2 episodes with this and then moving on to the story at large would probably have done better than where they are at the minute. I'm trying so hard not to spoil this, but I'm just finding and it's not a spoiler that they're using sitcoms. That is wearing thin really, really quickly. And where do they take
That's
it?
not a spoiler, that's the premise.
I know that's the premise. But, you know, it is wearing very, very thin. And yes, there are things that are happening elsewhere, but it needs to move on a bit quicker than it actually is. I think if you were to watch it as one big movie, I think you're going to get that payoff. It's just doing this 30 minutes per episode at the minute, weekly. I'm struggling with it. And I'm struggling with, I mean, we were giving Nolan a kick in for moving aspect ratios. My God, the end of episode 3. How many bloody aspect ratios did we have there?
That was fun. I enjoyed that. That was good. I liked that. That was a lovely little touch, I thought. Yeah, I found it a joy to watch from start to finish. Honestly, I have. I can't get enough of it. It's got its hooks into me. Good for you, Ed. Thanks for trying it.
I gave it a go, and then I watched Dirty Harry instead.
I'm gripped by it. I like the sitcom setup. I like the little tense, weird bits. Yeah, Paul Bettany's fun in it for the first time that I think I've ever thought Paul Bettany was fun. And,
I liked him in A Knight's Tale.
I did not like him in A Knight's Tale, but okay.
Well, I think you said
channeling Rick Mail.
Yeah, you said that to me, and I watched closely in episode 3, and I've got to say, yeah, I think you're onto something here. The facial expressions have been really entertaining, they really have.
And yeah, but like you say, I can also see why it's not going to click with everyone because it lives or dies on its premise, and if that premise doesn't work for you, the whole show is going to be a flipping slog. So it's, loads of people are on the forums praising it to the high heavens, and an equal number of people are saying it's god awful and they can't watch it. And fine, there's loads of other stuff around. Watch something else. Wait for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because that will be, I'm sure, more within the
which was supposed to be the first.
Yeah, that's right. Series. It was, but it'll be more within the usual MCU wheelhouse.
And Kaz, you're still going to stick it out to the end, are you?
Yes, I am going to endure you talking about it on the podcast for the next 3 months until I can finally watch it from the start at the end.
I think we'll have given up on it. If it continues the way it's going, I'm probably going to give up on it and come back to it later on. But there's always the risk of the spoilers. That's the problem. Right. Anybody else been watching it? You watched Night Stalker, Ed, as good as me and Steve pitched it as?
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as much as you can enjoy a thing about serial killer. I enjoyed the jaunty 80s music at the end of it. That was particularly good. I felt that, unlike a number of these things, I felt that the balance of what happened, the balance of people being interviewed, as you say, having the policeman that did the legwork, along with a reasonably sensitive portrayal of the victims and from the perspective of their loved ones, it was well judged and well balanced. I enjoyed watching it. I got through that in good order. So yeah, that was good.
Can I say something a bit wussy about it, which is that I think it's a bit too much. I think I've not finished it, but I'm massively enjoying it, and I'm a sucker for these Netflix crime docs, like a lot of people. But the first episode, there were a couple of times when I came away thinking, I don't think I wanted to see that photograph. You know, I don't think I needed to see that photograph of that scene.
It's an
for me to get the gist of how horrible the crime is. And
I get what you're saying, but it's interesting because reading back through it, it's one of the first instances where there was as much publicly available photography of what the man had done. So you're not seeing anything particularly new.
Yeah.
And in part, that's how the whole Night Stalker mythos became as sensational as it was. And I mean, I suppose the only thing that makes that a difficult one to call, such as and I use the word and it's possibly inappropriate, but I don't think there's a better word, such as the almost cartoonish villainy of the gentleman in question. It sort of all feeds into that. Whether it would work as well under with such as you ever might get a more nuanced serial killer. Whether that's something that would need to be visited then. I think in the context of who Ramirez was, it sort of works.
Yeah, those photographs as well were quite censored, Tom. So I know what you're saying, it was quite graphic, but believe me, there was you were saved from seeing quite a bit as well. There was a lot of the photographs were actually after the body had been removed as well.
They also recreated the crime scenes quite a bit, didn't they, as well? So I guess it becomes less real because it's not the actual images, but a recreation with actors and stuff. So.
I thought tonally, it was I thought that's what made this stand out above the others that I've seen. Certainly the interviewees that they used, and the fact that it was the two coppers.
Having those two coppers that makes all the difference. Really does.
Anybody been watching anything else that we need to discuss?
Other than I will watch all 5 Dirty Harry movies. I'm 3 in, 2 to go. No, not really.
Like I said,
I'm still sorry.
No, I'm just going to mention The Expanse again, but I don't need to.
I'm still loving Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Last episode on Friday. Last episode ever, which is a shame because it's a really great series.
And I'm currently going through Deadwood for the first time, which is a revelation.
I'm a bit late to that party, aren't you?
A little bit late to that party.
There is so much television out there. You can't be on point for all of it unless you're Kaz and have somehow found a way to photosynthesize.
There is a documentary starting in 3 minutes on BBC Two about DeLorean, Phil. Which I'm sure
which will be on iPlayer.
I've probably seen it.
Yeah, it'll be on iPlayer. And that's a brand new one.
Oh, it's a brand new one, is it? Right. Okay.
So I think it's called DeLorean Back from the Future.
Right.
And it's about him and the company and everything.
All of a sudden, we got to wrap up really quickly.
No, we're fine. Stay for another hour if you like.
Oh no, I need to have my tea.
Yeah,
and I'm running out.
Always eat before we start this.
No, I have to get my son in order before we start this. It's more the fact that I'm now most of the way into my bottle of San Emilion, and if I don't eat something, going to school, driving my son to school tomorrow will be exciting. So yes.
Kaz, we haven't heard from you. You've been watching?
I have taken it upon myself to work my way through some Michael Mann movies in a bid to watch something good rather than just watch Netflix and Amazon.
Funny enough, I watched Manhunter a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so I'm pained by just how many different versions there are of all of his films.
I watched the theatrical cut of Manhunter in that case, since we're being specific,
Yeah.
followed by Red Dragon, and Manhunter is so much better.
It is, isn't it? I don't get how they
so
can
much better.
Yeah, they can get the tone just right. And I mean, they had Norton and
Oh, it's got an
Hopkins
amazing
is
cast.
good, and they had
amazing
Harvey
cast, but it's
Keitel, didn't they? It's just
Yeah, he's playing Jack Crawford.
yeah.
But if you've read the book, Tom Noonan is perfect casting for Dollarhide, and Ray
Yeah.
Fiennes is not.
He's not. Yeah, I mean, Noonan is perfect casting for any monstrous serial killer, but he does. I mean, they do really well in that. But yeah, I was just thinking after seeing Collateral that it made me want to see a few more good films rather than just Netflix movies, and made me realize that maybe we'd get some more Man in 4K. Heat's been remastered in 4K, and then I realized who owned Heat, and then I got sad.
It's Warner Brothers, isn't it?
No, it's Fox. Fox and
Is it?
yeah, and Disney.
Oh, I don't see that then.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I'm sworn Heat was a Warner Brothers film.
Well, Fox have released the Blu-ray for Heat. It got me Googling it now in case I got it wrong when I looked it up earlier, which will make my day, Steve. But yeah, Fox released it on Blu-ray. So my concern is that Fox are now, whatever Fox is, Disney, are now in charge of.
So it'll be on
Star, which is not going to do me any good when I want to see it in 4K, and I want all the versions because he keeps.
Well, it might be in 4K on Star Plus.
Yeah, it's true. It might be.
It's funny the things that pop up in Disney Plus that are in 4K, like Pirates of the Caribbean movies are in 4K on Disney Plus.
Yes, they
have. Really weird.
They have done well to upgrade.
The Black Cauldron is in 4K on Disney Plus.
Where's my Return to Oz in HDR? That's all I'm asking.
Muppet Christmas Carol is
in HD.
I know. I want the weirdness
4K.
in full offensive 4K HDR.
Yeah, the Muppets, like we discussed last week, are coming on I think it's the 19th of February, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that. Really am. And all the Family Guys turning up on Stars as well, because there's loads of them that I've missed. So yeah, lots of TV coming up. I think that's about it for this week. I think we've covered everything we need to cover. Do you want to do a podcast competition, Kaz?
Sure. As I said earlier, you can win a copy of Link on Blu-ray, and to enter this competition, use the following question to answer correctly the question to the competition page. Who is the lead actress in Link?
I know.
Yeah, just so you know, all of you pick Terence Stamp or the director will be in for a disappointment.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Right, VDub, he's donated £10 and he hasn't asked a question either. VDub, thank you very much.
Thank you,
that
sir.
really is appreciated. He says, thanks to the team for everything, much appreciated. Well, the same back to you, much appreciated for that. There was one other thing that I needed to read out, and I didn't read it out right at the start, but where are we? No, it's too long to read out, but basically this AV and hi-fi retailers and custom installers map is on AVForums. You'll find that in the home cinema buying and build guide area. There's over 130 places so far on there. And of course, you can't go out and visit the shops at the minute. But while you're in lockdown and before lockdown's lifted and you want to go and demo stuff, if you want to add any additional retailers or suggest the addition of a retailer or a custom installer, then please get in touch with admin via the contact form on the forums. We're not charging for a place on the map. So if you want your AV hi-fi retail shop or custom installation service added, then please contact admin via the contact form on the forums. Before we go, if you want to catch up with us during the week, we are on Twitter. Most of us anyway are on Twitter. Ed's is usually good fun to follow. So what's your handle on there?
EZCal, same as my
EZCal.
surname is spelt. I can't promise it's particularly on message. It's generally what ails me at any given moment. Periodically there's some hi-fi stuff.
Entertaining. If you want anything about American politics, then you can follow Steve. Steve is
well, less so now that we've got a competent government in the States.
Yeah. And what's your Twitter handle?
It's Stephen Withers.
At Stephen Withers with a
at
PH.
Withers, with a PH.
I'm at Phil Hinton. Kaz, are you on Twitter?
I'm not. No.
Okay. And Tom?
I abhor social media, so no.
Okay. So there you go. If you want any
Translation,
interesting-
I'm not good at social media.
But yeah, that's everything for this week. So my thanks to Ed Selly.
Oh, hang on. We hope you enjoyed our programming, but more importantly, we hope you enjoyed life.
Kaz Harlow.
No monsters in the projection booth.
Say it with feeling.
No monsters in the projection booth.
One more for luck.
Yeah.
No.
Tom Davies.
Leave the building. Enact the age-old drama of self-preservation.
And Steve Withers.
Still lurking about? Don't you people have homes?
If you enjoyed the podcast, then please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, click the notification bell, and it will inform you every time we upload new videos. You can also follow us on Twitter. The AVForums Twitter is @AVForums. You can also follow us on Facebook and bookmark avforums.com for latest reviews, news, and videos. Plus, leave us a 5-star rating on whichever service you use to listen to us. If they allow it, then why not leave us 5 stars? But only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next week.